My name's Steve Tanhauser, and I had the privilege of having Stefanos Miltsakakis as my partner for a number of years in a bar called the Bear's Den. We met, Steve and I met, I had just finished up grad school at Virginia Tech, and I came to Raleigh where I did an internship at a hotel called the Royal Villa Hotel. And Steve, believe it or not, was a bouncer at the hotel where the nightclub was. We instantly got a tremendous friendship started, and that continued. And Steve and I decided that we were going to open a bar together. And three years later, we did just that. What was different about Stefanos? Everything was different about Stefanos. First of all, I called him Steve, and he used to hate that because he would, Steve, call me Stefanos. And I'd always call him Steve. But Stefanos was, first of all, everything about him was incredibly unique. He was built like the statue of David. He had a 56-inch chest and a 34-inch waist. He was literally the most soft-spoken guy. So here's this gigantic man, this giant, okay? It doesn't have an ounce of fat, all muscle, and he yet had this soft-spoken, like, hello, how are you? It was just always really soft, and yet he was absolutely an athletic wonder. I have lots of Stefanos moments. You have to understand, we opened a bar that we had live rock and roll 6 nights a week. And it became one of the most popular bars in Raleigh. We had the greatest live rock and roll band, so people were just coming and we were growing. And here we are, two guys in their 20s that are both single, that, you know, are just able to work countless hours and just take it all in and make it happen in Raleigh. And we were on the trend-setting edge at the time. And so Steve and I spent a lot of time together. And he, you know, I'll give you a fun story. He was, you know, Steve, of course, is a first-generation Greek. And my family, my mother was born in Sicily. So when we were building the nightclub, Steve would teach me Greek words, and I would teach him Italian words. And of course, what are the words you teach somebody first is swear words. So he would teach me all the swear words in Greece, and I'd teach him all the swear words in Italian, and we go back and forth, and you know. So in Greece, Easter is very big, very, very big. Well, he invites me to his family's house on Glenwood Avenue for Easter dinner. So I come over there on Easter dinner. Now let me give you a little backstory. In Greek, hello is yasu. Yasu, yasu, yasu. It's like in Italian, ciao, ciao, ciao. In Greek, it's yasu, yasu, yasu. Well, screw you is yamisu, okay? So he taught me the Greek swear words, and he also taught me hello. So I go to his house for the big Greek Easter dinner, and I'm late. I'm late to this Greek Easter dinner. I've got a basket with bread and wine and everything. And I get there and I see the lamb is already off the spit outside. I'm like, oh no. And I go upstairs, and you were probably already there as a little guy. And I open the door, and in true European fashion, the table goes from the living room, from the edge of the door, all the way into the kitchen. And there's just table, table, table. And everybody's sitting at the table. And I come in, and I've got my big basket. And I'm late, and they're all eating, and they all look up, and I come in right behind Steve and his grandmother who's sitting there, and I looked at him and I said, Yamisu, everybody, Yamisu, Yamisu. And with that, finally, everybody's holding their fork in their mouth like this, looking at me, and Steve grabs me by the collar, he pulls me down, he goes, Steve, stop telling my grandma to screw herself. And I realized at that moment, oh my God, I've just told this whole table 10 times over to screw themselves. And that's all he did. He waited for me to go on, and then he just grabbed me. Hey, come here. Steve, don't die. I decided to bust his chops one day and tell him that the wrestling guys at State were saying that he didn't have it anymore. He wasn't quite the same. That maybe he was just getting a little older. So that night, we had a big band, and all the wrestlers came to the bar. And they were looking at me like, man, what the heck happened? I'm like, what are you talking about? They said, Stefanos came and worked out with us today. They said he threw every wrestler around the room like we were like little toys and just didn't stop and was just beating on us. And I'm like, really? I said, oh my God, we thought he was going to kill him. So you could get him, you could tweak him. It was really easy to tweak him. And I've got so many stories like that. But he just was so unique. He marched to the beat of his own drummer. And he cared about everybody in his vision. If you were a friend of Stefanos Miltsakakis, you were a friend for life. He was there for you. You could call him at 2 o'clock in the morning or 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and he'd be there. And he'd do whatever you needed him to do. He could isolate everything else out of the world and just make it happen for you. You know, I didn't, because Steve's grasp of the English language wasn't super strong, first of all. And not that he didn't speak and communicate effectively, but it wasn't like he was a big, that he had a big sort of like vocabulary. And he was never a guy that wanted to be in the limelight, in the cameras, doing that sort of thing. And it was interesting. It wasn't until after the Olympics where he started going far beyond wrestling. Now again, Steve was not just a wrestler, he was a champion. He could just, do you know, in the 3.5 years that we owned the bar together, I had one fight, one. And I was almost excited, like, oh my God, I'm finally gonna get to go stop a fight. It was in the middle of the dance floor. And I went running to go stop this fight. And right before I was about to pounce on the guys and stop them and break them up, somebody grabbed me by the back of my neck, and I'm 6 feet tall, and they grabbed me like I was 2 feet tall, and all I heard was his voice and go, Steve, I got this. And he pulled me over here, separated the two guys, and carried them both out by the scruff of the neck, and just walked them outside, okay? And that was it. So I always knew he had it in him to do anything from a defense standpoint, but it wasn't until he came back from the Olympics, when we were selling the bar, that he started getting in tune with all these mixed martial arts and all this unique ultimate fighting stuff. And of course, just as he was amazing as a wrestler, he was amazing in all that. I mean, the man was just one big muscle, but it was more than that. He knew his body, and he could, he just was limber and lean and long and just could do things that nobody could do. So it doesn't surprise me sort of post-Olympics that he was able to go to Hollywood and really take off on that. Describe Stefanos in a sentence. I would say he had, okay, so let me see. Describe Stefanos Miltsakakis in a sentence. Stefanos Miltsakakis, I don't want to get emotional about this. Stefanos Miltsakakis was the guy you wanted to always have on your side, because you knew he'd always stay on your side. And to describe him would be to describe the combination of David, and he had the heart of David, the strength of Goliath, and the ability to be loved like nobody ever. I don't know, he had no enemies. Once you met him, you wanted him to be your friend. Once you knew him, you knew you were lucky to have him as your friend. He was just, when you combine genuine, when you combine sincere and generous, all together with his incredible uniqueness, that's what Steve Miltsakakis was. Outstanding. If there's one word that would describe Stefanos Miltsakakis, I'd say outstandingly unique. In every facet of his life. He only knew one speed, and that was to go for it 100%. It was all or none. When I'm in it, I'm in it. And not me, but we, whoever's around him, we're going to win it. We're going to have fun, and we're going to win it, because if you're going to do it, you better go all the way. If you're going to do it with passion, do it with conviction, and just keep going and never quit. There are so many Bear's Den memories, but you have to remember when Stefanos and I opened the Bear's Den, Liquor by the Drink had just came to Raleigh. You could still be 18 and drink beer, and you'd be 21 and have liquor. And we decided to really show Raleigh, North Carolina, all the fun that you could have in a bar. And we did that with some of the best live entertainment. We had turtle races on Tuesday nights. We had limbo contests on Wednesday nights. We had, we had wet t-shirt. We started all that. We invented the upside down kamikaze, where you would look down the bar and you'd see 20 people with their heads on the bar and the bartender going by with bottles, Stefanos or myself just pouring it into their mouths. And we just had fun. We tried everything. We did all this. People said, you can't do that. And we said, well, it's not against the law and it looks like a ton of fun. What the hell, we're going to do it. And Steve and I did it. From turtle races to upside down kamikazes to you name it. And if you ask any of his friends, I guarantee they'll remember and tell you all about it. So when I heard Steve passed away, the shock was unbelievable. You didn't believe it. I couldn't believe it. He was a man, it was impossible to put him down. There was no way. Steve was going to be the guy that I'd see when he's 90 sitting in a chair with a straight glass of wine, drinking and smiling and tell everybody to have a good time. There was just no way that could happen. I, unfortunately, at the time had just had surgery and was incapacitated, so that even made it that much worse for me not to be able to do anything, after having a couple of ankle and quadricep surgeries and literally being sort of limited to a scooter and not being able to get around. But it was devastating. He, again, this is Stefanos. He's bigger than life. This is Steve Miltsakakis. How can that be? It's impossible. Until we started to find articles that said, there was just a tragic incident and he passed away. It was just unbelievable. Oh God. Well, I would say first, God dang, it's good to see you again. I didn't believe it. I knew it couldn't happen. And then I'd probably just hug him and not let him go for a while because I loved him. He was great. Again, you don't not love a guy like this. And I know he'd do the same. And I'd probably say, you want... Just such a damn shame. Such a damn shame. He was a very special guy, gentlemen. LA's had him for quite a while, and you've been lucky to have him. But if you could have seen him in these formative years, he was a sheer trip. Just a trip. I am lucky to have had him as a friend, lucky to have him as a partner, lucky to know his incredible family because the acorn didn't fall far from the tree. And he's the guy that everybody should have in their life that you never forget, no matter how long it is before you see him again. And when you do see him again, it's instant. It's instant. You're right back to where you were. To the entire Miltsakakis family, I can't imagine how devastated you have been with his loss. He is just a special guy. You raised him right. You ingrained in him the stuff that turned him into the legend, the friend, the person that we all know. And I so hate this loss. And buddy, here's to you up there. I know you're doing something good up there, and keep doing it. We miss you.